V. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Attack Wrap now in 2025. I'm your host, Nick Kennedy, here on Rogers TV, and we've got a very special guest today. And just before we get to that, a quick promo here. If you haven't got your tickets already for Saturday night, make sure you get to the box office or go online to the Attack website, because we are giving these away to the first 3,000 fans that show up to the Bayshore this weekend. A wonderful little dip and chip plate. Maybe you want to throw some brie and charcuterie around it. Very versatile. It can hold whatever you want. Make sure you get those tickets. First 3,000 fans that show up are going to walk away with some brand new, I don't know what you call this, plasticware, silverware, something like that. Not quite China, but it is branded, and you're going to love it, and your folks are going to love it. It's a great gift. You can give it away. You can keep it in your house. Get those tickets. I want to welcome to the show our general manager, Dale DeGray. Dale, thank you so much for joining us here today on the show.
Nick, thanks once again for having me. Yeah, a little chip and dip tray or something.
Can't go wrong. Yeah, there you go. We'll see who. I think these will make pretty good like noisemakers too at the game. You know, they can be clapping on them, banging on them. I don't know. I think something's going to happen. It's going to be a good time.
It'll be interesting.
Well, you've had a busy year. I mean, you've been kind of watching this team go around, making some big moves. And one thing that I wanted to ask you about, I'm curious to chat with you about, because I had an opportunity when Mr. Crawford was up visiting Owen Sound a couple of months ago, just to kind of briefly ask, just before the NCAA rule came into effect, what he thought about that and whether that was something he would be advocating for. And obviously we know that now an NCAA agreement has been signed and allowing players to move from one to the other. How does that then affect your job as a general manager now that you have this kind of whole extra stream of potential players that could come in now from the BCHL or the USHL or from even NCAA back to OHL, depending on their age, I suppose, and also now having the stream of players that could choose, we're going to play NCAA right out of the OHL.
Yeah, I think Nick, what it really does, it really just opens up our entire market to the availability to get any of those kids from any of those leagues that you mentioned. And what I think is best of it all is that any of the kids that play 3 or 4 or 5 years in our league have the ability, if they pass the clearinghouse, to get into the NCAA school of their choice, to go down there and play and continue on and play some high level hockey. And that's not to say that they can't do the standard route, which would be just to play with us and play it out and go to the U Sport or NCI or the CIS.
Excellent. I'm curious then for you as well. There's an interesting camera angle for the fans watching at home. Okay, there we go. Back in studio. Do you see like the OHL? Do you see it maybe becoming a younger league overall? Is it going to be harder as a general manager to entice 20-year-old players to play, or is that kind of something that general managers feel like we're not going to have too hard of a time doing?
No, I think if you want to know the truth, I think it's going to become an older league, and that is that we may not have to. I don't want to use the term force feed, but bring 16-year-olds into the fold earlier than we maybe need to. And I think in some cases, I mean, I can certainly look back and think, well, you know what, an agent really wants this boy signed, or the parents really want to come to the league, and at that point, if you don't sign them, you risk the possibility of maybe losing them the following year. So, you know what, you take a big swing, and you know what, you sign them, and you hope that everything works out. And let's be honest, sometimes it doesn't, and you really have no one to blame but yourself. but you're put in a situation, be it, through the parents, through the agent. And I think now what'll happen is kids will be okay with playing as a 16-year-old in junior B. And yeah, we can sign them, but they're going to be okay with playing junior B and then come as a 17-year-old. I think this next season coming up, I think you're going to see a number of 18-year-old rookies be brought into the league. And that's where I'm saying, because we've kind of got 2 years of draft picks that are sitting on our rosters, whether there's going to be 17 or 18 next year, I think you're going to see a lot of kids that have maybe played a year or two of junior somewhere, and we're going to probably look at them and go, they're ready to play in our league, and they want to go to school, so they'll play 2 or 3 years in our league, and then they can move on from there. And it gives you the ability to put a 16-year-old, have him play junior B, and he'll come back as a 17-year-old, and better for it too.
Excellent. So, I mean, this has opened up for you guys, obviously, the opportunity, as you've discussed, to sign players that you've drafted before that have wanted to opt for that NCAA route. I can think of, obviously, Trenton Bennett, who came in and made a big splash in his stint here while Carter was away at World Juniors. Michael Deck, obviously, playing quite well, and even seeing some great chemistry with him and some of the other younger 16-year-olds on the team. And then Mason Roy as well on the back end when there were a few injuries, able to kind of plug a couple of holes for us there for a little while. How has this been kind of, I guess, a benefit for you as a general manager now with a bit of a wider net of prospects?
Well, obviously, the whole idea is we draft kids because we believe they can play. What it does do, it takes away maybe one of their options to hold us sort of over the fire on. And that would be that, hey, you drafted me. Hey, thanks. Really appreciate it. But my plan is to go to Notre Dame or wherever, right? And now it's like, okay, if you want to go there, that's fantastic. Come to Owen Sound. We'll work with the coach and the recruiting people there to get you on track so that you can be there when you want to be there. No harm, no foul now, right? So it really is, it's going to be the best of both worlds for the kids that want to go to school and partake in the NCAA sort of route. And I think the NCAA, any of the coaches that I've talked to that are there, they love it because they're going to get a much more mature player, not just mature off the ice as an 18 or a 19 or a 20-year-old, but mature as a player where they've been through it at 16, 17, 18, 19. They're going to get themselves, they're going to find themselves with some pretty good freshmen when it comes down to it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're going to have players that, like you said, would normally be playing junior B or out in the BCHL or something like that, able to get that OHL experience and development. And we know, obviously, this is the best development league that there is for kids that age.
Yeah, and I do think the NCAA, I think it's going to be interesting to see. It's almost going to be like they're going to be like the American Hockey League Part 2, because they're going to be older. They're going to have players that like I said, have played maybe 3, 4, 5 years sometimes in our league or anywhere throughout the CHL, which is going to make them a stronger team in the long run.
Awesome. That's great. Now, kind of thinking about development here, we actually have the big prospects game coming up. Owen Sound, of course, with 3 players at this game. You've got David Bitkowski, Harry Nancy, and Matthew Kaprowski down there representing Owen Sound at the prospect game. When you've got 3 players that are attending this, you've got I think a handful now. Is it 6 players on the central scouting list as well? The midterms just out now. Are other general managers just like calling you up trying to get the secrets, or do they just send you the TED Talk offer right away?
No, first off, it's a great opportunity for the boys that are there. The only problem with trying to identify 2 teams in one league is that you're going to be limited to, how many kids can you take off of one team, or how many kids can you take out of, this conference. It's difficult because I do think we could have 2 or 3 other players on that team for sure. But it is a bit of a showcase for the league. It's a showcase for the different teams. And I think that's why you have to sort of draw the line at some point, right? But back to your comment, I mean, if I'm correct, you're thinking about the goaltenders, but yeah, having 2 goaltenders on that central list, and then having our starting goalie be the goaltender MVP of the World Junior Tournament, it's a pretty it's a fantastic situation to be into.
Awesome. Obviously, a great opportunity for David and Matt and Harry to be able to go down and showcase their talents here on a national scale, similar to how Carter was able to do that at U18s, Halinka, U17s, all of these different ways. For these 3 guys, what does an opportunity like that mean for their career, and how does a player take advantage in this sort of one-game showcase?
Well, the one thing they can't do is think they're down there and do something that they're, outside of the box, right? Like I would say to everyone that goes into a situation like this, just do what you do to the best of your abilities, because that, quite honestly, is why you're there, right? You don't have to go and try to do more. They want to see you for what you do, and just be the best of that version of yourself. And I think where kids get into some trouble is they try to think they have to put on a show, and you don't. You're there for a reason. Just go and do what you can do. And look, I can sit here, as a general manager for many years and say, hey, don't get all tied up. Just, go down and just be yourself and just play the game. But I know there's a lot of nerves going into it for sure.
It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is a benefit to you, but also to the general team to actually have players drafted into the NHL. They end up getting those experiences at prospect camps and getting that pro experience and coming back, probably even more motivated than they were before, with new skills and new, ways of training, and therefore kind of improving the guys around them. So for yourself as a general manager, one, I guess, do you get to attend these games, or is it mostly kind of meetings for you guys? Or and if you do attend these games, do you kind of play the role of advocate, I suppose, for some of your players to NHL scouts or NHL GMs, and with this sort of intention of, let's get them drafted, let's improve their game at the pro level so that when they come back to us this next season, they're just that much better?
Well, there's a lot in that question, but honestly, the whole idea is for these kids to have as many experiences as possible. Yes, the fantastic part of it, like when Carter was away, how many times do they mention Owen Sound attack, Owen Sound? It's fantastic plug, for the community. I've always said that. Much like the prospects game, it'll be the same sort of thing. But on a personal note, with the individuals, absolutely, Nick. They're gonna learn from every time they're on the ice, every time they're sitting in the dressing room, every time they're on the bench, communicating with new coaches, new players, seeing what they, hey, I got to believe they're all measuring, if Harry Nancy's sitting there, he's going to measure himself up against another, skilled hockey player. And he's going to say, hey, you know what? I am better than that guy. Or maybe I've got to work on something to get that good. And those are all sort of markers that the kids can just subconsciously take. And it's like you said, they're going to come back. They're going to work at something else. They're going to have a little bit more confidence. They can teach some of the kids that aren't there. They can let them know how it plays out. It's all a work in progress. That's what junior hockey is. And for these kids to go and be able to experience this, it's fantastic for every individual.
Awesome. Really appreciate your insights there on the prospect game. I want to kind of shift a little bit just into talking about the season so far, and what you'd like to see here going forward. I know when we chatted towards the beginning of the season on the show, we had kind of talked, and you had shared how really the future of this team is quite bright. There's a lot of young talent on this team that is still developing and getting there. And I think now I believe we're one of the youngest, if not the youngest squads in the OHL. And it just seems like it's a team that is well positioned for the future. As a general manager, how do you kind of approach a season like that where you're kind of playing a bit of that long game and setting this team up for long-term success?
Well, yeah, I think one of the hardest things for me is that we've always been an ultra competitive team. Um, Obviously playoff bound every year. That has not changed, Nick. I can promise you that. I think one of the biggest things that we were incredibly fortunate enough to have happen for us is that, we were able to bring three coaches into the fold that didn't know each other at all, and they have really become an unbelievable hockey team within itself. And that the players love being around the coaches. The coaches have so much time for these kids, and I think hence the development part that you see, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. And I think anybody that goes to our games can really appreciate, what they're seeing, because you're right. We're either the youngest, we're one of the two youngest teams in the league. And I saw a note the other day that this is the youngest Owen Sound attack team in their history. So for me, I'm sitting there looking at what we have, and where are we going to get to? And yeah, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, but I can tell you that the three gentlemen that are behind the bench every night, they're willing to put that time in. They want to see the same sort of, outcome and success that I want to see every single year. And they're in the bowels of it all every day, every practice, every shift, every period. And it's just an exciting thing to see take place. And I'm so looking forward to not just next year, but the end of this season, to see how we can go from the deadline to moving forward. I want to see where we can get to.
Well, I was going to ask you later on in the show, but I mean, you led into it so well about this coaching staff. I mean, there's a palpable difference within the arena when you go and watch a practice, even when you watch a game. This is a group of coaches that you can tell they love developing this talent, and the players are, you can tell they are loving it as well. They've got guys that are going to sit down and work on them with video. They're going to work on their skills. And I mean, how do you kind of go about picking coaches and finding sort of how each of their skills sort of complement each other and build this sort of team?
Well, I will tell you, this summer, having to bring in a whole new set of coaches, um, I'll be honest with you, it was a little daunting at the start. Um, but I can tell you, it quickly became, when I knew Scott was going to be the head coach, and to talk to Scott and understand his personality and talk to people that knew Scott and how he coached, then it was a matter of just trying to find some other pieces. And honestly, I wanted to get a guy with a little bit of experience. Shawzy's that guy, and as the second assistant, I'm always open and interested to see if I can find somebody that maybe out of the box and doesn't have experience or has very, very little experience. So when Reagan was available, an ex-defenseman has lots. It just the trio is just, it just seemed to just fit for me. But I can tell you, it's easily the most work I've ever put into a group of coaches. But it's the first time I've had to go and start from scratch and bring all three in. It's usually just one, maybe, and a goalie coach. And then even that, I had to get another goalie coach this year. So no, I'm glad I put the work in. I'm glad I made the phone calls and asked their questions, because I really do believe that we've got a great trio of coaches. For these kids, and you know what you talk about, I mean, they can want to, show video and talk about, tactics and skill sets and stuff like that, but if the kids aren't willing to sit down and watch or listen, it's all for naught. And I can tell you this year, boy, the kids are like sponges. So if they're going to be like sponges, I think the group that we've got coaching, they're going to spend as much time as they can until they get the fulfillment that the kids want so dearly to have.
Excellent, excellent. That is great to hear. And for those of you who maybe haven't seen a game this year or haven't been to the arena, it's something you got to come see. You got to watch how this coaching staff works with the guys on the bench, and even mid game. There's something special there, so you don't want to miss out. And you can get some tickets to this Saturday's game, not just at the box office, but also by watching the show. We have a trivia question for you, and if you're able to text in the correct answer, you will win yourself a pair of tickets to this Saturday's game against Flint at the Bayshore. And your question is, what is the most wins and points the Owen Sound Attack have had in a season? So you need to come up with the correct season. And I'm going to just take it a step further and say you got to add how many points did the Owen Sound Attack finish with that season. So make sure you get those phones out, send in that answer, and if you do, you will win yourself a pair of tickets to this Saturday's game against Flint. And if you don't win, you'll want to buy those tickets because, like I said, we're giving these away to the first 3,000 fans. I'm a salesman today, Dale. I'm just telling you.
I see that.
You
I
need
see
some
that.
extra help with this. I'm in on it. Get those tickets. Be at the Bayshore. Let's make some noise. And I guess you get to welcome back Sam McHugh to the Bayshore here for another game against this crowd. So let's get those phones ringing. Okay, I want to talk to you. We'll probably get cut off by break, but we can pick this up again after that as well. I want to talk to you about a couple of the moves that were made this season, and the reason I want to do so is because I keep looking at these deals, and I go, like, we won every single deal, and some of the deals are great for the other team as well, and that's fine. But it just seems like every single one of these deals are fantastic deals that were made. So to kind of start off the season, just before the season started, obviously sending Cedric to Kingston for a second round pick, a third round pick, a fourth round pick, a fifth round pick, and then swapping 10ths for 2016 or 2026 rather. Of course, an overage player, he's going to produce, that going into it, but being able to pick up all of these picks that you're then able to, it seems, sort of sprinkle into other deals as well to make things happen, given that you have this restriction of not being able to trade first rounders. How important was it to you to make that deal, one for Cedric's sake, but also for the attack's sake, to get this pile of picks back?
Well, Nick, I'm going to tell you first off, boy, trading Cedric and I'll go one further, trading Colby, not really something that I look forward to doing, because if I think what we've always tried to do is to finish a season with guys you really want to start the next season with, right? And I think if anybody watches our team, the one thing that we have a tough time doing is scoring goals. And I think anybody that's watched us play last year, the two players that we're going to talk about can certainly score goals. So it's not easy to do. I get it. Kids like to maybe ask to be traded, and you have to sometimes facilitate that. And like you said, you try to get the best and the most that you can for that asset. And that's all that I try to do. And I try to be realistic. And I think by doing that, I don't want to sit here and say, oh, we won, you lost. They got a great player, and if you've got really good players, which I think that we had, I think you have to get a return on. And I think we did. But moving Cedric, I love Cedric. I love the great young man, great player, and he's having a heck of a year this year. So I'm very happy for him. I think he's agreed to go to an NCAA school, so I'm happy for him in that regard. But I hope he doesn't get off the bus when we play him in Owen Sound.
Absolutely, I think that's very fair. The next deal I saw made there, obviously picking up the breakaway wizard himself, Bruce McDonald, for a 6th-round pick in 2027. Kind of filling in some of those. Like you said, you were looking for a little bit of that offense. Trying to get an overager that can help with that, whether on the first or second, third line kind of thing. It seemed like a pretty good pickup. It seems as well like maybe as a general manager you can shed some light on this, but getting overagers at the beginning of the season, relatively cheap to do so at that time of the year. People are trying to move them around and find the best fit. And a 6th-round pick seemed like a pretty good price there for what Bruce can bring.
Yeah, no, look at the big thing for me is if you're gonna bring in an overage in his last year, he better be a good young man, because things can go south pretty quick if they're not, just because of that nature of them being an older player and they have expectations. But Bruce has been a fantastic young man, a great trooper to bring in. The cost was minimal, and I think for the output, and I think Bruce McDonald is going to have a much better second half of the season than he did in the first half. And I think part of it is just trying to figure out where he fits in and expectations. And he's a phenomenal skater with high skills. And once he starts, like anybody that likes to get points, once he starts to accumulate some points, he'll start feeling that much better about himself. So I look forward to seeing him really producing in the second half.
Excellent. You mentioned a little bit, and we got about a minute left here before break, but bringing in an overager, you're really looking for that character in a player. And he certainly, whether it's been on this show or through the Attack social media, has shown that he's not shy to show off his personality. And I think has quickly warmed up the fans to his style of play as well, which is that quick speedster.
Yeah, and certainly, everybody sees what he is on the ice, and I think if you're on social media at all, I think Bruce is all over our social media, or was for a certain period of time. He was doing everything. So, but you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, and that's a big part to me. That's a big part of junior hockey, and that's a big part of having personalities on your team that are willing to do that and not be afraid to speak in front of the camera and be a part of the social media side. So, you know what? Kudos to him. I mean, if that's the case, maybe you'll get into broadcasting if hockey doesn't work out or something like that.
Well, we'll have to give Bruce a call the next time I can't do a show here, and we'll give him his first break into the industry then. And for those of you watching at home, we are just about to head into break, so make sure you get those phones out, pull up Hockey DB or Elite Prospects, and you are trying to find the answer to which season did the Owen Sound Attack get the most wins and points in their history. So grab those phones. 2 tickets for this Saturday's game against Flint. Chip bowls will be provided. We'll see you there, and we'll see you here right after this break.
This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
These days at your local Legion, we're marching to the beat of a different drum. On a mission to support veterans, to have fun, and to welcome everyone to our ranks. You don't have to be a veteran to join the Legion. And as a member, you'll join thousands of others serving our veterans, our communities, and our country. Oh yeah, and our Member Perks program will save you thousands on shopping, dining, products, and services across the country. Join us at legion.ca.
The best in the world, Islam Makhachev. An absolute wrecking ball. Arman Sarukian. This man is as elite as they come. Marav Dvalishvili. The man's a phenom. He just does not stop. Umar Nurmagomedov is the real deal. Undefeated. He is a beast. Don't blink. This one is going to be crazy. From the West Coast, one of the biggest nights of the year.
Public transit, Garbage pickup, parks and recreation programs, snow removal on your street. How can you stay informed about these and other important local services? Tune to City Council coverage on Rogers TV. See your community leaders at work on Rogers TV City Council coverage.
Back to Attack Wrap here on Rogers TV. I'm your host, Nick Kennedy, and a big congratulations to Crystal Vallis for winning this, our first trivia question of the night. The correct answer, of course, was the 2016-17 season with 102 points. I believe, and Dale, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was 1 point shy of winning the division. And I think we were second place, not just in our division, but in the entire league that year.
I have to take your word for it.
Okay.
For some reason, I was thinking it was 104 points, but
okay.
Anyways, so I would have been wrong. I wouldn't have been getting the chip tray.
No problem. Well, we'll share our second trivia question, and you guys can work on that for the second half of the show here. But your second question is: the Attack streak of 30 win seasons ended last year with 29 wins. How many years in a row was that streak? So make sure you grab those phones, go to probably the same website you found that answer. And we got a couple more tickets for you to Saturday's game against Flint at the Bayshore, against Sam McHugh. Chip trays. Make sure you can get nachos at the Bayshore. You can eat them out of your tray right there. Test it before you go home.
That's a good idea. I like that, Nick. That's a good idea.
All right. Okay. There you go. It's better than the little plastic ones, right? You got a nice branded. Like this is so you can cheer and eat all at the same time from the comfort of your wonderful seat at the Bayshore. So make sure you do that. I want to keep talking about a couple of the moves here that you made this season. Like I said, I was impressed. I always, when it comes to this time of the year and you hear people talking about, well, what about this move or what about that move? I go, I'm so glad I'm not a general manager. And so I am not envious of your job, but much respect to you for doing it. Obviously, you talked about, you never want to trade a guy like Colby Barlow. But the return that you get for Colby there in Tristan DeLille and David Bedkowski, that almost seemed worth it on its own. And then you pick up 2 seconds, 2/3, a fifth, and a seventh, which, we keep that seventh, but then send our seventh away for Ray. So you could kind of, mix or match how you want to look at that deal. It seemed like just a home run deal. I think, the reception of that up here, of course, was amazing. And you could tell it was a good deal just by, those Generals fans were obviously sad to watch Bedkowski and DeLille go. So, not only did you get good players, but again, you got good people as well in those two players. What was it about them that really made you go, we got to include these guys on the deal?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. They were the two kids that I wanted in the deal, and I pushed and pushed and pushed, and But once again, in order to get good players, you have to give up good players, and Colby Barlow he's I don't know whether he'll get 50 goals this year or not, but he had a slow start, and he's probably still going to get 40, and that's crazy impressive. And that's what he is. He's a goal scorer. And once again, what do we need this year? And that's why it's so difficult. In hindsight, everything looks great, but you got to give something up to get something. And those are the prices that we had to give up. But, I love what we were able to get. And I love the fact that you're bringing up that we were able to get Mason Ray with that 7th round, because I had no idea until you just said that, because I don't divulge down the road and try to figure out, okay, what did that pick turn into, and who was that guy? You know what I mean? I don't do that. To me, it's just, if this is what you have to do to bring in the players that you want, that's what you do. If you think that's the right price, but that trade, that was for me. I had to take a big gulp to do that, but the return was outstanding. Great young men that came in. Never mind the picks that we got. They got the player that they coveted, and I think the two players that we got have been fantastic. I'm excited to watch them play, and never mind the fact that they're just great young men.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Petkowski now rocking an A on his jersey uh, after saying goodbye to Connor Smith, which brings us to that deal. I mean, it's a deadline deal, and Connor is obviously a fantastic guy to have in your locker room. Really nice gentleman to talk to, and a fantastic player. And I think what I liked about this deal so much. You can see there on screen for those watching at home. There's Connor Smith, now a defenseman for the Brampton Steelheads. 6 games played this year, I believe, with the Owen Sound Attack. So really, you are trading a player that hasn't really been able to play much of their OA year. There's not a huge showcase of what are they capable of as an OA. Now, in Connor's defense, he scored a hat trick in 6 of his only games that he played for the Attack this year, and has proven his worth over the years, shown how capable he is at Ducks camp as well. So you're kind of making a move, I guess, and sort of having to, like, are you having to call on some of his production with the Ducks and with the Gulls as well when he got sent down, since he really only has 6 games with us to kind of showcase this year?
No, Nick, I think with that trade to Brampton, I think the Brampton, Mississauga people, when he was in Peterborough, I think they'd seen him enough. And they have enough of a book on him to say, listen, that's the guy we want. That's the type of player we want. And quite honestly, him not playing much this year might be a good thing, because he's going to be full of energy. He's going to be, hopefully those injuries are behind him, and he can go in and play the big, strong, physical, puck moving defenseman game that I think everybody knows that he is and can be. Hence Anaheim drafting him, and probably gonna have to look to sign him. I gotta believe. The package is just ridiculous for that player, and I think they knew what he was, whether he was injured or played all 40 or 35 games with us.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned kind of the return there. In 2025, a 2nd and a 7th round pick. In 2026, a 3rd and a 6th round pick. In 2027, a 5th round pick. And then in 2028, a 2nd and 10th round pick. So just a boatload of picks back for obviously an incredible player in his overage year. Not just an incredible player, but an incredible leader. So a huge addition there for Brampton. But for you now, I guess, like, do these picks, are they kind of, are these picks that you want to use, or do you find, like, for you, picks kind of help to give you more flexibility as far as, being able to move players, add players, improve the team, especially when you're including picks, you see across the OHL, picks for 3, 4, 5 years away. How do you kind of use those to your advantage as a general manager?
So first off, and I don't want to correct you, but you can only trade 4 years out. Okay. Used to be able to trade endless years out. Okay. So I think the league did a fantastic thing when they said, hey, you can only trade 4-year window, which I think is fantastic. But it's really what it is. It's currency, right? That's all that it is. And it's, the more currency you have, the more players, or the better player you're probably going to be able to afford. And it's just that, you have to look at our team. We're not sure where we're going to be in a year from now. We're not sure where we're going to be in 2 years from now. So if we can minimize the output of picks, and even let's say we move some of our picks from this year's draft and push them into next year's draft, and let's see where we are there. Or we decide to use the picks. It's currency for the future, and that's how I look at it. And you're right. I mean, some of the costs to get some of these kids has become ridiculous, and maybe people think some of the trades that I've done, the picks that I've got, are ridiculous. But you certainly, nobody knows your own players, like you do yourself. And that is, you see them on a daily basis and you talk to them and have a better understanding of what they're all about. But no, I think bringing in picks and in that trade, it really is. It's about filling the cupboards the best you can, and hopefully you have something down the road where something makes sense, and that Connor Smith trade will continue to pay dividends.
Excellent. Well, speaking of currency, a big congratulations to Stephen Fawcett for winning the pair of tickets here with the correct answer to our second trivia question. The answer, of course, being a 12-year streak there. So, Steve, you have got yourself a pair of tickets to January 18th game this Saturday against Flint at the Bayshore. And you will be getting your very own Owen Sound Attack branded chip plate for your apartment and your new puppy. So hope they're all doing well as well. That's not part of the deal, by the way. He just got a new puppy, so you can find him at the game if you see him and congratulate him. Talking a little bit there about the Connor trade, I'm curious for you. So Mason Ray comes in, and that's a trade for a late round pick, and we kind of talked about how that sort of relates a little bit to the Barlow trade. Do you approach both of those trade scenarios the same as a general manager, where you're receiving a player for a smaller amount versus sending a player away for quite a large number of picks? Is it sort of the same thing where you kind of approach it with just, here's a need that we may have, or here's a need that I see you have, and this is what we can do?
Well, the need factor is, I mean, that's right regardless, because I would like to think anybody who's making a trade, it's a need, whether it's them, wanting Connor Smith, or us looking to add Mason Ray. So it's always going to be on a need basis. But do I look at them the same? Well, I don't know, other than the fact that if I'm going to get a player, like anybody, if I'm haggling, I want to get it at the cheapest price possible. And if I'm moving a player out, I want to get the biggest return possible. So, I mean, is it the same or is it different? I don't know. You see what I mean? So that's the only way I could answer that question, Nick.
No problem. No problem.
But I should say though, on that, I'm hoping that both parties would walk away feeling like they got what they needed, or really entered into that trade, and can walk away feeling, hey, you know what? I'm happy paying what I paid, and I'm happy receiving what I received. So I'm not in this to say, I won this trade or I won that trade. That to me, only time will tell on any of that.
Absolutely. Well, that's great to hear. And I just kind of want to take you into the final trade for the Owen Sound Attack of this season, and kind of get some of your thoughts on this. Obviously, we've seen great production from Sam McHugh this year with the Owen Sound Attack. Certainly has taken that next step in his game that I'm sure you saw the potential of when you traded for him at last year's deadline, wanting to bring him in and add that grit and scoring touch as well. And he certainly has been that player for us this year. And then sending him off to Flint this year, where he's, I think, scored in his first game, receiving back Cole Zarofsky, which, Cole has already got 2 points in an attack sweater. You can see him there on screen if you're watching at home. What was it about this player, Cole, that you saw and just went, okay, we got to add this guy to the team?
Well, first off, Sam McHugh definitely became the player that I thought he would. And I'm going to straight up, I had no desire to move him at the deadline. And he and his agent knew that. And then when I had the opportunity to look at the possibility of trading a 19-year-old for a 16-year-old, that was the only scenario I could see making this move. And to get Cole, he was a player that we had considered taking him where we were picking in the draft. We thought very highly of. And so in order to do that and and Sam was going to help us facilitate that, I really had to look at that. And the direction of the team moving forward, everything just made sense, Nick. It just made sense to look at this. And once again, you have to give up a good player to get a good player, and you're giving up experience for some youth, and you give up the now factor for the future. And those are all things that, I spoke with the team about, the coaches about, sorry. And we were all on board. We all believed in this player, that if we're going to do it, that would be the player to do it for. And yeah, he's got 2 points, but I think if you look back to the last couple of games, he had a goal and an assist on 2 goals that were turned back. So he should have 4 points in 3 games. So I feel bad for Cole in a little bit, because we don't have too many goals turned back, and he's been involved in 2 in the last 2 games.
Well, absolutely. I mean, just the offside call there during the London game was I'm sure a tough break for him, looking to pot a second goal in his first home game with the Owen Sound Attack. Now, obviously, we've talked a little bit about the OHL not being able to trade first round picks, whereas you see in the WHL they can move first round picks in certain situations. Cole was a first round pick of the Flint Firebirds, going 6th overall. How often do players that get picked in the first round get moved? Obviously, we saw our first rounder in Nico Addy go off to Peterborough in exchange for Sam McHugh, who has now gone off for a first rounder coming back. How often do you see those moves being made as a general manager?
From my standpoint, personally, those would be the only 2. From the league standpoint, it happens. It happens every year, quite honestly. And there's only small windows of opportunity. A number of years ago, we drafted Victor Mete, and we traded him before the season started to London. But there's the window of opportunity is the very start of the season. It's about 15 days. And then January 1st to the 10th, you can move one of the players at that point, basically. Those are the 2 periods of time you can do it. And it doesn't happen a lot. Sometimes boys don't report. And those are the windows of opportunity to trade them. Some situations like this one, like the Nico Addy one, there was situations that arise where that's currency. And you either putting them in a package to get something that you think is better that can help you at that point, or you're like us this year, where you wanted the younger body and you think he's going to be a big help and will be a big help for us for years down the road.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've heard wonderful things. I haven't seen Cole play too much outside of his games here with the Owen Sound Attack and when we're playing against Flint, but for a guy playing bottom 6, sometimes 4th line minutes, putting up 15 points as a 16-year-old is nothing to shake your nose at, for sure. So I think, him being able to get that opportunity to play some more minutes. I mean, like you mentioned, two goals overturned that could have had 4 points in 2 games, 3 games with the Owen Sound Attack. So seems like a home run there in Cole Zarowski.
Well, and you have to remember too, like I think the picks now are 6 and 7 or 7 and 8 with Pierce Bowie, and we look at it. I'm not here to sell Pierce Bowie short, because these two are going to be something special for us in the next number of years, and I look forward to seeing the 2 of them. They're both incredibly smart. They're both incredibly skilled. They both skate very well. It's going to be a lot of fun in the Bayshore from here on out, and they're probably both going to be a big part of it.
Well, it must be something about the way Pierce plays that he just seems to have chemistry with guys. Like when Michael Deck came up for his little stint with the Owen Sound Attack, those 2 looked like they had played on the same team for the last 15 years. Like they were passing, they were finding each other on, no look passes right out in front. I think Deck got his goal off of a play that Pierce started. So, certainly you have found a couple of very talented players there. And I know for myself, I'm really excited to see them flourish into players. And I hope that those watching at home will have the patience to come to the Bayshore and actually watch these players develop because, like you said, Dale, I think they've got something special there.
Yeah, I think the young kids, it's amazing, and I'll revert back to like a number of years ago when I went out on the ice for my first time in years, but watch the skill set and the skill level of these kids. It's amazing. So when you can put a couple of high skilled guys together with another high skilled guy, and whether honestly, whether they've played together or not, they just think on the same wavelength, and it's uncanny the success that they can have. And I will throw this in that Michael Deck's going to come up and play Friday and Saturday for us. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not, but I know that's going to happen, and I look forward to seeing him in those situations.
Excellent. I didn't want to be the one to say it, so I'm glad you did. I think that's going to be a really fun weekend to watch. So, obviously, a big announcement as well for the Owen Sound Attack, not a trade, but rather the C moving on to the jersey of Landon Hookie. And I think, you know what, he certainly has earned it. I think that's the general sense around the arena. He has been a very vocal leader on this team, leads not just clearly with his voice and with his demeanor, but also with his work ethic and his production on ice. He's been very, very productive for the Attack this year, and you can see him taking the time and talking with guys and motivating guys. What is it about Landon Hookie in your mind that just makes him such a qualified captain of this team?
Well, I think, like I said to him when the coaches and I were talking about it, and we brought him in, and I asked Hooks, I said, Hooks, who would have thought, 2.5 years ago, you'd be sitting here being one of 20 captains in the OHL? And, he was honest. He said, certainly not me. Right. But that is exactly how far he has come. And that's a credit to him, by his willingness to put the time in to become, that big, powerful, tough role model that he is. And he's a fantastic young man. I think anybody that's ever talked to Hooks would certainly vouch for that. And he has a presence on the ice, and when he's on the ice, everybody knows he's on the ice, and he's tough to contain, and he does the right things. He tips shots, he blocks shots, he plays all the situations. And like I said, and a perfect role model off the ice, in his work ethic and his commitment to his teammates to help drive the bus and become better. And that's all you can ask for in a young man, to be that captain and to drive the bus like that.
Absolutely. He has certainly been able to do that, and we look forward to seeing what he does here in the second half of the year. This is his every game that he is playing is getting closer and closer to his last here in this league, being an overage player. You mentioned earlier in the show how a guy like Bruce McDonald, he's just poised to have a good second half of the year. How much does a team really kind of settle in and start producing, especially in the second half of the year when all these rumors about trades and all these thoughts about, are we going to be on this team? Are we going to be, part of a move? They're gone. Those voices are silent now. That noise is gone. They're just locked in now to, we got to get through the rest of this season, and we want to perform to our best possible ability. What does that do in a locker room, especially for yourself as somebody who has been in that situation before?
Well, listen, for me, it's not a big deal. I wish I could tell each and every one of them that don't sweat it, because nothing's going to happen. And for the most part, Nick, let's be honest, very few of them need to worry. But honestly, every one of them worries, and it is tough. And it's just not in Owen Sound. It's throughout the league. So yeah, you're right. I think once January 10th comes at noon, when the bell rings, everybody takes a deep breath and they say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." And it's tough. It's tough, but it is part of the league culture and the business part of it. But for the most part, 95 or 98% of the kids in the league have nothing to worry about at that time of the year. But I do think you'll see better performance on a number of kids as they move forward. Just because of that, they can take a deep breath, they can relax, and just go play the game.
That totally makes sense. Being able to kind of focus on the game, you said as well. They're going to worry about it, but it is past, and hopefully that is a little bit less noise in the ears of some of the players. But curious for you, speaking of kind of noise in ears and stuff, how do you as a general manager kind of manage expectations of fans and players and ownership and staff? Like, how does that noise affect yourself as general manager, and how much do you try to kind of shield maybe some of the team from that?
It's tough to shield the team. Okay, I can shield myself by staying off social media for sure. Like, that is without question. But regarding the fans, look, I've been here a long time, and I know what they want, and rightfully or wrongfully, sometimes I think I fuel them a little bit too. It's all about expectations, Nick, and I think my expectations are very similar to theirs, and that is, is for the most part, as long as the kids go out and give an honest effort and they work their butts off till the final buzzer, a lot of fans can live with that, and I don't care where you are. I think a true fan is okay with that. And I am for the most part, but it still comes down to, we're marked on wins and losses, and that is the truth. And the coaches get that, and that's why the group that we have put in as much time as they do, so that these kids can all have success, and ultimately it's team success, and then the fans love it even that much more. But I do think, we have fantastic fans, and they're passionate, and they know what it's about, and they know how hard our kids are working, and they can see it and they can understand it. Is it a little blip in the grand scheme of things? That's how I would see it as a general manager. But all I can do is go in and encourage the coaches to keep doing what they're doing, because what they're doing is noticeable both on and off the ice.
Absolutely. I think you've summed it up wonderfully there. It's even if we are marked on wins and losses, but even some of these losses, I've heard from fans where they walk out of there and they go, that was one of the best games that we've ever played. And so it's a hardworking team. You talked about getting down to Owen Sound style hockey, that blue collared hockey. And I think we've seen that. I look forward to continue seeing that. So thank you so much, Dale, for joining us on the show today. We're just a few seconds away from being done. And so it's time to plug these wonderful chip trays. Just one more time, make sure you get on to the Owen Sound Attack website. Call the box office. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you in the morning. Get your tickets for Saturday. The Flint Firebirds are coming to visit us. Sam McHugh on his way back to the Bay Shore. You get a chance to see him one more time, and you can sport these are going to be great for camping. You can wear it if it's raining as you go to your car. There's lots of uses. Make sure you get those tickets, and we look forward to seeing you this Saturday at the Bay Shore. Let's get loud and cheer on this Owen Sound Attack squad as we head into the second half of the season.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy. Or you could use the Arrive Alive smartphone app to help you choose your ride. Be it a friend, transit, or taxi, getting home safely is app easy. Now available for iOS and Android devices. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
This is TGL presented by SoFi. 24 of the best players in the world, no, the universe, pitted against each other 3 versus 3. In a first-of-its-kind arena. More Tiger, more Rory, more everybody. 6 teams, Atlanta, Boston, LA, New York, the Bay, and Jupiter.